Hey everybody, how you doing? My name's Tim and welcome to Bros Who Know Stuff. Today what I want to talk about is the NVMe SSD device, or the card that you have on top of your hat if you're using a hat. And what I do is I use the SD card as my boot up. So I have Bookworm OS, which is flashed on the SD card, and then I have my SSD on top, which is on the hat, and that is what I use for my storage. I want to show you a little bit of information on what is an NVMe SSD and how it relates to the exposed PCIe here on the Raspberry Pi. And if you received any value from this video, please like and subscribe. That would greatly help the channel. So let's get into it. So what is an NVMe SSD and why you should be using one on your Raspberry Pi? We'll take a look at that. NVMe, Non-Volatile Memory Express, is a protocol designed to use the PCIe Express bus to connect solid-state drive storage to the CPU. So the PCIe, which stands for Peripheral Component Interconnect Express, is a high-speed serial expansion bus standard. What does non-volatile mean? Non-volatile memory is often NAND flash memory that retains data when the device is powered off. NAND flash memory comes in several physical form factors like SSD, PCIe add-in cards, and M.2 cards. Of the NAND flash types, I wanted to point out one, single-level cells. It stores 1 bit per cell and offers the longest lifespan and largest number of program erase cycles. And from here on out, I'll just let you read what's up there, and then we'll get into the other stuff. The first thing you want to do is open up your terminal, find out what directory you're in. So I'm in my home directory, and then I'm going to do a sudo apt update just to make sure everything's up to date. And then you can do a sudo apt upgrade just to stay on top of things. The next thing I'm going to do is list out what I have mounted. This is your MMCBLK0. That is always going to be the name of the microSD card that you have on your Raspberry Pi. And then here's a partition 1, and that is where the bootloader is. And then partition 2 is, this is the operating system underneath root. And then down here you can see NVMe 0 and 1. That is the SSD card. That's your NVMe. So one of the first things I want to show you are a couple ways to get to the UUID. You're going to need the UUID for your NVMe, for your SSD. And so you can enter BLKID. And as you can see, the Linux file system always reads the SSD as NVMe 0 and 1. And then here is your UUID. We have the key UUID and then its assignment, the equal sign. This is a string. One thing to remember is you want to remove these double quotes, because when you put it in the etc fstab, EFSTAB file, you want this to be read as a numerical value and not as a string. And then another way we can find the information is you can do list block and then a hyphen and then a small letter O, and then we can put UUID. Let's see, file system. Let's see, type. So let's put in name, and it could be uppercase, lowercase. So now we have what we need. So right here is the SSD, and then here is the UUID right here. And you know that because up here on the column is UUID. So I previously have done this. So you can see here that I used a text editor, and then what I did is I just went ahead and went like this, and then right click and then copy. So you can copy that, open up your text editor, and then right click and paste. So one thing you want to do is, of course, change this part to UUID, because that's the way it has to be when you put it into the what they call the, let me show you here, etc / and then I want to say file system table, because FS is file system, and I'm assuming that tab is maybe table. So that's where we're going to go next. So you're going to want to use sudo, and then forward etc, and then F, and then go down to the bottom. When you put yours in here, you can see that I took the double quotes out, and then I'm mounting the NVMe 0 and 1, and I'm using file extension ext4, and the default are 0 space 0. When you're finished putting your information in, to write it out, down here it says write out. Right there means use the control key and then the small letter O. So you want to hit control letter O, and then you can see it says file name to write, and you want to write it to this etc fstab, and same thing. Okay, so hit your enter key or return key, and if everything's correct, then hit control X. All right, the next step is pretty simple. What I'm going to do, I'm going to list out everything that we have mounted. And so you can see I have the mount point right there in blue. Might be hard to see. And now if we want to make a directory, we do sudo. Let's just say I want to make a home directory. So make dir, and then the mnt nv tab just writes it out. And then I want to do, let's see, we'll just say project. And so the next thing I'm going to do after I do that is I'm going to CD over into the SSD, which is on a mount point. And there we go. And then I'm going to ls to list everything out. And there you have project right there. We're presently in my home directory, home Tim, and I want to CD over into the SSD. So remember, you always have to use / mnt and then your mount point. And then if you wanted to make a directory, you could make dir, if I use mount, and then nv mount point, and then I use home. Of course, I've got to use sudo. Sudo is giving you some higher privileges. And so here we go. So sudo make dir in the directory right now. Here's what we have. We have home, lost and found, and project.